Just going to give everybody a second to hop on here. Thanks again to everybody who's set a reminder to jump on and check out tonight's episode on Sudbury. Appreciate everybody that sent in questions as well. Super excited to talk about this market. It's one that's close to home. I have some personal friends who come from the area, who know a lot about the market, but not as much as our guests tonight. So I think there's a lot to learn. I think there's a lot of people that have ties to Northern Ontario, and people honestly that would spend a lot more time there if they weren't so committed here. So our guest tonight, Adam Haight, is a local agent in the Sudbury area. He's also the Chair-Elect of the Sudbury Real Estate Board, so the same position as me here in Guelph. Adam's been a broker for quite a while. He's also been licensed since 2006, and he just made a big move today, a little bit of a splash in the market, so I'm sure he'll tell us a little bit about that as well. So I see Adam is here, so I'm going to invite Adam to join us, and then let's get into it about the Sudbury market. Hopefully Adam should pop on here once. There we go. There's my man.
Hey, what is going on?
Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Tyson. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm obviously I'm a big fan of what you do online and all your social media marketing and stuff. It's very different, very cool, and I know that you pride yourself on being a little different than some of the other realtors that are out there, and it's really creative, and I appreciate a little bit of ingenuity when it comes to the space, because a lot of realtors just throw out the same stuff over and again. And
you know what? Yeah, that's what did it for me, honestly. And don't get me wrong, like, everybody's got, if you can't swim, get out of the pool kind of thing. But,
right.
Templates are great. They're great things. But I kept scrolling through and I was like, you know what else can we do with this space, right? And that's part of what I do, and trying to get creative with real estate, and I take that right into my business as well. So that's pretty cool. So
yeah. It's awesome. I love that it's just a little bit different, because like you say, you see the same things over and over again. And I think part of it for me is what we're trying to do here too, is just bring a little something different, something someone hasn't seen, and try and be a little different, stand out a little bit. So maybe I know I gave you a bit of an intro there. I don't know if you caught any of it, but if you want to tell everybody kind of a little bit more about yourself and what you do up in Sudbury, and that'll get us flowing here maybe.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been a real estate agent up here in Sudbury for 16 years, born and raised here in Sudbury. So, I mean, I know the area as good as anybody. Love the northern lifestyle. We've got over 330 lakes up here, all kinds of camping, fishing, whatever you want. I mean, that's what's awesome about Sudbury. Personally, like I said, born and raised, educated here, honors Bachelor of Commerce degree from Laurentian University, was in the finance field for a couple of years, and then decided to jump over to real estate for the past 16 years. And as you mentioned, big news is that I jumped over to ReMax Crown, one of the biggest brokerage here in Sudbury today. So it's super exciting. Any of you agents that are out here that have been they're watching this, you know what it's like the first 24, 48 hours when you either join a brokerage. It's like changing your signs, changing your marketing, changing all that stuff. You can't forget any of those T's to be crossed and I's to be dotted. So it's been a little bit of a whirlwind, but I'm happy to be here. So yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, speaking of whirlwinds, I'm sure it feels like your market's been like that for the entirety of maybe the pandemic, especially. But when I was putting out a teaser for the episode, we were just talking about the U-Haul index, and I know it's not a perfect metric by any means, but so much new blood coming into Sudbury from all over, but especially from Southern Ontario here. Maybe you can just give me a bit of a primer on what your market's been like, and sort of days on market, who's buying out there, and just give me a little bit of a brief.
Yeah, so like bird's eye view of the market, if we're looking at it from there, like I said, I've been doing it for 16 years. I've been through some really high times. 2008 was really big for us. I've seen some really low times, but I've never seen anything like this. And honestly, I don't think, I was talking to my, my broker of record, who's been in it for 40 years, and she's never seen it like this, honestly, up here in Sudbury. I think, nobody saw the lack of inventory that would result from the pandemic and ultimately started pushing prices. And then, that kind of flows into investors looking at the city saying, okay, what's going on in Sudbury? We've gone from $250,000 average sale price to $350,000 to $450,000, and up and up. So, people are seeing big returns, big opportunities to invest in the, especially with the BRRRR strategy, to be able to refinance, and renovate, and then basically go and buy another property. So, all that pressure and lack of inventory combined has kind of led to the perfect storm, where we've seen our average sale price basically go from, I want to say it was 2000 and probably about 2019, we were about 265, and we're up to 520 now. So we basically doubled our average sale price in the course of like 2 years.
Yeah.
You just even, more recent statistics, we're sitting here with, we normally carry around 1,000 listings on our market. We've got 100 on the market right now, residential.
Okay.
So
it's pretty stark. Yeah.
Yeah. To say that things are competitive up here would be an understatement, but there's good reason for it. I think we were, vastly undervalued here, as 170,000 people here in Sudbury. We've got all the major amenities. Like I said, there's a lot of nice lifestyle stuff up here as well. But you can't find a house for 265 in any 170,000 person city in Ontario.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that's been a big driving factor. Days on market, I think we're about 10 days on market on average, and most of that's just due to, holding for offers, right, and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure if it was zero, it could be,
Yeah.
Our list to sale price ratio right now is about 125% on residential.
Okay. Yeah, that's a phenomenal number to know. In episode 1, we were out in St. John's, and that was one of the big things is out there, a lot of the sale prices were very similar to what you see on realtor.ca, but that's a really good metric for us. Yes. Because if you're looking from out of the area and you haven't connected with somebody up there yet, and hopefully anybody that's considering, buying in Sudbury that's talking to us tonight, as it says down here, Adam's the best Sudbury realtor you could ask for.
Thanks, Darren. Appreciate that,
buddy. The check's in the mail, Darren.
Checks in the mail. But that's my jiu-jitsu training partner. So if I'm not nice to him, he's going to submit me.
Oh, he knows what's on the other end of that then. Eh?
Yeah. So,
just for context too, our days on market here in Guelph is about 6, but to the same effect, it's not a byproduct of listings really sitting. It's just that, there is that artificial window for people to sort of hold back offers and then review offers on a set date, and that number has declined throughout the pandemic. The first 2 months in early 2020, it jumped up to about 3 weeks on the very high end, and ever since then it's been steadily declining to this being the lowest point that it's ever been. I think we're going to see it jump back up here when the March statistics are released. Just a sense, there's been some properties that have either priced at the comparable sales and started to to sit a little bit longer, or people that have the only thing that may keep that number low is the not holding back. So if they've done a 48-hour irrevocable or something like that in lieu of setting an offer date, just to try and bridge or hedge against maybe not getting an offer on that date, so they list a little bit higher and see if they can't still get that
was actually a question I have for you, and I'm always interested in different markets. We're still seeing a lot of agents, and call it a pet peeve of mine, listing under where they probably are selling right now, and we haven't quite caught up to that yet. Are you guys seeing underlisting, or are you seeing like overlisting more than anything in Guelph?
I think there's been a pandemic of underlisting value, or of underlisting properties for the better part of 2 years, and that's a pretty popular topic wherever you go. It's really, the strategy came out of Toronto, right, and it sort of works its way out, creeping everywhere else. Everything happens there first, and then it comes out here, and you feel that the Toronto impact, and for better or for worse. Yep. And then, so we definitely saw a lot of that. I think, whether it's a little bit of fatigue or as soon as the market softens, the risk you run is that if you underlist a property and you don't get as many offers as you expect, right? Or you don't get any at all.
And honestly, just with the ebbs and flows of the market too, we're sitting here at, March break, right? So, after March break, normally at least up here, a switch turns on, and all of a sudden, we're going from like 15 listings a day to like 50 listings a day. And there's going to be those properties that are caught in between that are underpriced, and then all of a sudden, there's a flood of listings in the market and a flood of options, and where you would have gotten 10, 15 offers, you're going to get 5 or 6 offers, and it's not going to pan out. So, I encourage everybody I talk to, and as far as realtors go, to try and list as close as you can as you think it's going to go, and we're going to have to get back there at some point, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have, so for me personally, like my market has a few niche elements to it. One is a land lease retirement community where we have a 30 to 60% market share depending on the year. But it's a land lease and you have to be 55 plus to buy in there. So there are times where we've employed that strategy, but the window to do it is much, much tighter than it would be in the broader market. So we've listed a couple listings kind of right at where we thought. And I have one listed outside right now, just in the general marketplace, a condo town that's about 12,000 above the last sale. But we listed it at, what we thought it was worth based on the previous 2 sales and its exposure and, the basement and stuff like that and the setting. And it's been on the market now for 13 days. So, I mean, part of that's a strategy. Like we don't need to sell it, but it also is just a little bit different. And that's the downside of that strategy, right? Is you, as a realtor, you don't want your property sitting any longer than it needs to. But at the end of the day, as you know best, the client calls the shots, and that's part of our strategy decision was to go that route. But I think you're right. I mean, the downside to the underlisting strategy is obviously that you're playing with people's emotions here too, right? And
someone's going to be caught in the middle, right? And there's going to be a group of listings that are caught in the middle when all of a sudden, I don't want to say it's going to change overnight, but you're going to get more listings on the market. Something's going to spread buyers out a little bit more, right? So
it definitely moves fast for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So
so I was going to go there just on like recent listings that you've had, but have you pretty much employed that strategy where you list it sort of at what you feel it's worth, and then are you holding back? Because I know you mentioned like generally the average list to sale is about 125% of the list price.
So I mean, if you're not holding back right now, then it's rare.
Yeah, of course.
We're starting to see more sellers be willing to take preemptive offers or bully offers, if you will, provided that they give 24 hours irrevocable or 48 hours irrevocable to allow some showings in. So we are starting to see that soften a little bit, from a strategic standpoint. But that might be just fatigue for a lot of people too, of like seeing the same thing where you're holding, just trying to switch up strategy a little bit.
Yeah.
If you get that swing for the fences offer right off the bat, then you're able to maybe shut the door on some of the other showings, and that's happening. So me personally, I'm trying to list a little bit closer to where things are, still holding offers. I think it's just a necessity when we're talking. 125% of list price is a pretty big number, and the fact of the matter is, I mean, if I'm giving them away, I hate to say it, but if I'm giving away for list price, I'm probably not doing my seller any service right now. So yeah,
for sure. And I think that's the other part of it too, is you're kind of it's a dereliction of duty to not at least consider holding back offers for a short period, whether that's via an irrevocable minimum or a set offer date, only because you do have probably more than one person interested in that property. To that effect, what does typical showing activity look like on something that's not super niche, like a pretty run-of-the-mill house that's generally pretty affordable?
Yeah. For example, I just showed a property on the weekend, regular, nice bungalow, decent area, that kind of stuff. I talked to the agent, and over the course of, I think, 3 days, she had 90 showings. So
wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
like honestly, it was to the point where I'm trying to book on our showing service, and there was no space. So I called her up and I said, listen, when can I show? Like, is there a 15 minutes somewhere I can jump in there?
Right.
So that's probably on the extreme side.
Sure.
But, 15, 20 showings in a course of a couple of days is nothing to see. You're probably on a week listing, you're going to get, pretty close to 100 showings
wow.
if you're in a reasonable, reasonable market kind of thing. So yeah,
that blows my mind. I mean, we saw that in sort of the peak of 2020 when prices were, I don't want to say cheaper, but things were more attainable to the average person. We would see roughly that amount of showings where you go in to book it, and like you say, it's every 30 minutes consecutively
Yeah.
blocked off.
Good luck trying to get in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not seeing that now.
No.
You know, I
It's
think
interesting.
that, yeah, like we're almost late cycle, or at least we've hit like a plateau here
Hmm.
where I can book maybe not my first choice of time, but I could probably get my second.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's like a townhouse, you know, that for our, you know, just trying to say it's like a 1997 townhouse in a row of seven with
Yeah.
a single garage,
Yeah.
that might sell for like 850,
Yeah.
900 here.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's a freehold, if it's a condo, you know, maybe it's closer to eight. But yeah, just so that's probably like 25, 30 showings in a week, where that
Wow.
might have been, you know, the 75 to 100 showings, if
Yeah.
not more.
What's your average sale price down there, Tyson?
We're
Ish.
close to $1 million.
You are, eh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and
There's
that's the
been
other thing. That's the other thing too. You talked about, right off the top, you're saying who's buying up here,
yeah
and we're seeing, and I'm sure we'll probably get into it later on, but we're seeing, between the pandemic, the work from home models, a lot of people gravitating from the GTA or from Southern Ontario up to the Northern lifestyle, and they're selling their houses for whatever 1.5, 1.6, and you can come and buy, you can buy something up here half decent for like $700,000, $800,000, probably for that
right
same house. So they're sitting on that money, and from a financial perspective, it makes sense. From a lifestyle perspective, it makes sense. Now they're not tied to being in the city. We're seeing a lot of that come up here, come north. So it's exciting for our city, obviously. That we're being noticed, but
yeah
yeah. So yeah.
and it's you know it's new personalities, new talent also for
Sure.
the area too, which is fantastic. Which, you know, may not have been even on the table before. I think it'll
Mhm.
be interesting too. Like we're getting into a very dynamic time here. I think where, you know, we're starting to see people get called back into the office, and you hear anecdotes
Mhm.
about companies that sort of went out over their skis and maybe unnecessarily committed to, you know, indefinite work from home or permanent work from home,
Yeah.
you know, that are maybe starting to reconsider that. But at the same time, they've made sort of that commitment to their employees, and set them all up with the capacity to work from home. So the
Well,
question
and that's yeah.
becomes, how long does that last, and do we see that be a permanent trend? And if it's not, you know, how many people then are taking jobs in Sudbury as
Yeah.
opposed to moving back, and leaving that lifestyle behind? I mean, I think once you get the taste of it, it's probably pretty addicting.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty nice up here. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, obviously you're not flirting with any other areas, so I mean, you,
No,
you know
no,
it as
I'm
well as
pretty
anybody.
yeah, no, I'm pretty happy up here. I'm pretty comfortable up here. But yeah, no, it's interesting. And then, completely different side. I basically, lie on the residential side of things, but what does that do for the commercial side of things too? If we're talking about office spaces that, were once full of employees that are now, work from home, what does that do? Is that going to change things up? Are people going to be able to invest in commercial properties, or is that going to hit a different road altogether, right? So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just on the just wanted to talk about new construction for a second.
Mhm.
Are there condominium apartments being built there? And if there are, you know, what do they look like? I know that there are, because a buddy of mine who I've invested with before has ties to the area. So he
Yeah.
sent me a building there, and was like, what do you think about this? And I said, well, now I'm here to talk to Adam about it. But
Yeah.
is it you know, a lot of condos, or is it more, you know, the freehold
So
detached in town?
we tried the condo route a while ago, and I want to say, we're probably what, 2000 and maybe 15, 16. There was a bit of a push towards some apartment style condos in the city. One of the major developers had built, I think, three or four multi-unit buildings kind of thing. It didn't take off,
Okay.
and for whatever reason, like we definitely, at least at the time, were a little more blue collar than we maybe are now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people come up here because they want the larger lots, they want the landscape, they want the lakes, they want the nature. So we don't have that same drive to be in more of an urban condo lifestyle. So what we've seen
For
is
sure.
like Townhouse style, that's come up a little bit more. You know, bungalow loft kind of ideas. So we're seeing those kind of things, where they're, you know, more semi-detached houses, that kind of stuff as well. But, you know, for the most part, the bread and butter of new construction here is still single family detached, right? So yeah.
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 On your comment about, you know, the people that are buying, and I just want to, before I move on, actually, I just want to get the exact figures for people that are on your end that want to know a bit about Guelph. So the average single family detached in Guelph in February was 1,062,000. Overall, it was 911,500.
Right.
Was just for Guelph City. So that's everything. That's condos, townhomes, freehold as well.
So there you go. I mean, case in point, you guys are basically doubling the average sale price of where we are here in Sudbury, right? So yeah. So more affordable and lots of lakes. Come north.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? You don't get the lakes, and I think, you know, I think the lake element is definitely underrated because, I mean, not only do you have the lake right in town, but you also have, like you say, 330 others. Yep. And out here, I mean, it's an hour and a half drive to water, realistically.
Yeah.
Hamilton aside, but you're not going in that water anyways. So is that something where you're finding a lot of that product is really jumped? Because I know here, cottage country for us, you know, 2 hours kind of in a circle, those prices really spike too.
Yeah, I'm going to correct you. It's camp country, not cottage country. Just FYI. Up here.
Up there, yeah.
Yeah. No.
But you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a whole other market, is that we're seeing recreational properties push north too. So people that were maybe shopping in Muskoka are willing to go to French River, go a little bit north of that even, and into the southern part of Sudbury. So definitely, as for residential on waterfront, we have a lot of it. And it's always popular, but we're definitely seeing, you know, as we see people move into this city, they're getting the lake lifestyle for roughly, you know, I mean, give or take the same price as your average sale price, you know, give or take. So I mean, you know, we've had properties selling $2, $3, $4 million, but, you know, for the most part, you can get a nice, you know, big waterfront on a decent lake for $1.5, $1.6 million, right? So that's pretty affordable when you consider what the rest of the province is doing, you know? So
yeah, absolutely. Like, you can't even, you know, comprehend that figure for waterfront that you like. And I mean, even, you know, people here that are looking at that second property on water, they've kind of seen their cottage budget, you know, almost double. Like, they were looking, like, I have a friend who's looking at, you know, $1 million cottage property near the start of the pandemic. And he's told me, he's like, I've had to increase my budget to 2 in that time because there just isn't anything on water that I want to be on that isn't, you know, what he conceives to be either deeply in need of renovations or a money pit. And like, there's a lot to be said for being on the water, but at a certain point, if it's a recreational property, you got to assess it a little bit differently if you're only going to be spending part of your time there too. So you either have to increase that budget a great deal or not. But I mean, if you can trade, you know, your, like, for that money, like the 1.5, like that's the 30-year family house in Guelph here with a double garage and a decent lot. So even if you haven't done renos to it, that's kind of where you're going to be at. If you've done renos, you probably 1.7 to 1.9. So if you're selling that, I mean, you can keep or buy an investment property and then still have your nice big residential home on water too.
Yeah, so, and that's the whole thing. I mean, if you're talking recreational propertage here, I mean, you can get into the market for $300,000-400,000 grand. You know what I mean? And that's like, you know, a reasonable, you know, cottage or whatever you want, right? And you're out of the city a bit, but that's the point, you know, and that's where it's at, right? So yeah.
If you want to be in a city, you wouldn't be looking at that, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So just on that condo conversation before we leave it sort of behind. So the only people that are really considering that condo product are people, and that, what you said makes complete sense about, you know, being a little bit more blue collar, not caring to have that sort of urban condo vibe. And you know, there's towns where that applies and appeals, and certainly towns where it doesn't. So that totally carries for me. But so that product was really just appealing for people that had sort of the bigger property or the property that became a little bit too much for them, and it was more of like a
Yeah,
mature
for sure.
product?
I'm actually surprised that it didn't take off a little bit more. And you know, I think there's probably opportunity for developers to start into that market again, because we are definitely getting a little more culturally diverse. We're also seeing, you know, I mean, we've always had a really strong arts and culture, you know, up here. And I think, you know, that community is definitely into the urban lifestyle. So to see that happen, again, I wouldn't be surprised if there's another push towards it.
Right.
But you know, the fact that we have 3 post-secondary you know, university you know, institutions up here, we have a lot of, you know, medical, like we have medical school, we have medical residents, we have a lot of stuff like that, you know, Condo Life would probably fit them very well. So I'm a little bit shocked that it didn't take off, but again, I think, you know, I think that'll be something that I would hope that the developers will be looking at, you know, before too long. So
yeah, there's a bit of an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue to kind of where I want to go next, which is picking your brain. And we had a question from a follower of mine prior to the, you know, teasing it out about just whether or not the impact of Laurentian's bankruptcy and cutting some of the programs had any impact, not only on sort of market sentiment, but also on your vacancy rate and for student properties and stuff like that. And the one thing I kind of figured, and you can tell me a little bit more, was that there probably wasn't a lot of purpose-built student rental out there, so something that could easily convert back and forth realistically. But give me a little bit of a synopsis of the rental market and what it's been like since that announcement.
Yeah, so we chatted a little bit earlier about this, but our vacancy rate in the city is still next to nothing. You know, I mean, in the city proper, probably I would argue it's zero. I'm not 100% sure, but it's
functionally zero though. Like,
it's functionally zero. I mean, you know, you're getting multiple calls on rental properties. You know, if you have one, you know, you're getting a lot of people that are ready to rent. So and you know, along with the sale price, obviously the rents go up too, because the investors are looking to make money. They've got to raise the rents. So you know, we're getting, you know, the rent prices are up, but the vacancy rate is still down. So tough to get into just about any kind of housing right now in Sudbury, but when you can, it's a good deal often. And you know, we're still seeing especially positive cash flows for investment properties. So yeah.
When you say it's difficult to get in, I assume that's more so, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but more so based on just the sheer volume of people that are pursuing each property. And it's not so much that, you know, there's an affordability crunch, although I'm sure there is to a certain degree, but probably more driven just by the sheer volume. And you mentioned a lot of that was that investor, you know, competing with end users for the product.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's just the market imbalance that we're seeing across the province, obviously, and it's just maybe intensified a little bit up here because we have arguably undervalued properties, you know, and that's kind of what's, you know, what's been driving that little bit of extra intensity. But ultimately, yeah, it's just a market imbalance, you know. But as the spring unfolds, I mean, we were almost like, I'll go back, I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago when we were, you know, just, you know, the tail end of the summer into the fall, we almost saw things start to balance out a little bit. And then of course the winter comes and the listings dry up, and then, you know, everything gets tense again. And then, you know, here we are at the beginning of the spring market. And, you know, I mean, it's cyclical, you know, this business is cyclical, right? So as we start to see more listings come on in the next couple of months, I would probably encourage people that are looking to get into the city to look a little harder, because I think things are going to spread out and we're going to start to see a little bit more balance happen, you know, in the next little bit. We're by no means going to a buyer's market. That's not happening soon. You know, I mean, we are 100% a seller's market, but to say that we're going to sustain 125% of list price would be unreasonable, I think. So, yeah.
I guess, you know, one thing that I find too with sort of you mentioned blue collar, and I don't mean to, you know, go back and keep, you know, oversimplifying, you know, the buyer pool and who's living where. But I think, you know, when you talk about as an investor that BRRR method where you buy it, you renovate a property, you re-rent it, refinance it, and then take that money from the refinancing and repeat the process. For anyone that's not familiar with that, I just want to go back to that. But I think there's a unique opportunity in blue collar markets, because I often find that, you know, the aesthetic of the house, and you and I know this as you're taking especially younger people through the house, I find has a little bit more of a draw to them. But in communities where that isn't necessarily top of mind for people that have lived there for a long time, or you have
Sure.
people that haven't moved a lot, and you have people that have lived in their homes for a good long time. I mean, and I see this with my senior community stuff all the time. They picked stuff that they like, and they're not changing what they like at
No, it stayed
50.
there for 30 years, right?
That's right. So
Yeah.
if it,
When you
if
broke,
it's
don't
good enough
fix
for
it.
them,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so there's a unique opportunity where the margin between the turnkey stuff and the stuff that needs work
Yep.
is big enough that you can come in and sort of do that. And I mean, I guess all I'm looking for is more or less you sort of confirm that, or you think there's more to it.
Yeah.
It's just the price point is an appeal too.
No, that's a fair assessment. I mean, history of Sudbury, for those who don't know, I mean, we're an old mining town, right? And we're nickel capital of the world. We produce all kinds of stuff, and it's a lot of our original work was done in the 30s and 40s. So I mean, there's old houses here, right? And maybe houses that have been generational houses or whatever the case is, and the aesthetics haven't changed. We also had a big boom in like the 70s, so there's a lot of 70s built houses where you still have you get into the odd one with the shag carpet and the blue toilets that I mean,
Yeah.
watch my Instagram post, guys. You'll see some blue toilets. Trust me. So yeah, no, it's definitely, there's opportunistic for those who have the ability to do the BRRR strategy here, and modernizing things. There's a couple neighborhoods that are being gentrified right now as well. So I mean, that's all part of it. So
Yeah.
Again, more appeal for investors, right? And we're not a new city, we're an old city. That's kind of modernizing as we go. So yeah.
And I guess too, you also have with that, I mean, like a lot of people, instead of moving, especially in a town where there wasn't a whole lot of the properties weren't super stratified, like they were more or less the same. There was some sort of upper echelon houses, but a lot of it similar. You would just, instead of moving and trying to find the right thing, you just build an addition. If you had
That's right.
the fourth kid, or I mean, you have kids in the three
Yeah,
bedroom
and we have like
bungalow.
specific areas, especially close to some of the major mine sites that were designed just for mining. I mean, they were there for the miners. The miners came in, they built the houses. They're all cookie cutter houses. They all look the same. They're all solid houses, but they've been added on to, or whatever it is. Just like you said, you got your mom wants to move in, whatever it is. Like you figure something out. So there's a lot of that stuff. Don't get me wrong. We still have plenty of new construction, modern stuff. But overall, the biggest boom in Sudbury were again in the 30s and in the 70s. So you see a lot of housing from that age, more or less. So yeah.
I know you mentioned the mining. Is that something that sort of has big ebbs and flows in population, or have you seen it sort of pretty steadily hold, or is there seasonality to it? Just to get a sense of how much movement there is in the market and how much of it is really tied to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our biggest export, I guess, mining material is nickel, but we do, have different precious metals as well. So obviously, Vale Inco is like a major company. Not Inco anymore, I guess it's just Vale, but dating myself there. But obviously, a lot of what we are is tied to nickel price. The good thing about nickel is that you make lithium ion batteries out of nickel, and we're actually being looked at by Tesla and all these other companies as well as being maybe a place to plant some roots, which is kind of cool. So to answer your question, as far as population goes, no, it's pretty steady. It's pretty steady. As far as the mining staff goes, there's obviously labor disputes and union layoffs and all that other stuff, and it comes and goes, but not significant enough. Not to mention, I call us a mining town, and I use that as, we've been probably stigmatized as a mining town, but we have diversified quite a bit, especially in the last 20 years. Our hospital is not our largest employer, but close to it. We have a school of medicine. We have a research institution up here for medical research institution. So industry is here in different ways. Mining is probably still the bread and butter because of the the ancillary products that go along with it. But at the end of the day, you know, it's not affecting population that dramatically one way or
It's
the other.
not, yeah, it's not just the mine and everybody to service it.
No, it's not. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with Elliott Lake or the town of Elliott Lake, but it's the same thing where it was like all of a sudden, you know, their stuff shut down and the city was a ghost town. We're not like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. If mining shuts down, it's going to be impactful, but
Feel it, yeah.
but it's, you know, I think, you know, we'd still have enough industry.
yeah, the city brings enough
Yeah.
other stuff to the table
Yeah,
that it's still
absolutely.
totally
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah.
So in terms of just give me like a quick forecast on what you think the next couple of years look like there. I mean, I know you
If
mentioned
we
that
only had a
this.
crystal ball, right? I mean, if anybody saw this coming for the pandemic, I mean, raise your hand and I'll tell you, put it down. But,
No, that's right. I mean, we'd
yeah.
all have bought 10 properties in 2020, and
That's my
we'd all
biggest
be-
regret
we'd all
is
be
like how
retiring
come
now.
I didn't compete against my clients for all these houses
Yeah,
back in the
that's
day,
right.
right? So, no.
Didn't know what you were walking them right into.
Yeah. So if I had to predict, okay, and you know, based off my experience, and everything else, I would say that we're going to see at least another year of this probably chaos, you know, come through. But you know, we know that the government's making pushes to increase interest rates, slow down the housing market, that kind of stuff. I think eventually up here we're going to see. We're not going to see a bust, and that I feel fairly confident in that because of the number of investors that have put money into the city, because we were largely undervalued. I think we basically just played catch up in the past couple of years for the rest of the province and similar sized cities. So I would say what we have here is probably going to be the norm in terms of sale price, that kind of stuff. But eventually, you know, all good things are going to balance
Sure.
out, right? So
Yeah.
we will see less demand, more supply, and you know, not 15 offers on every property. So
And I don't know a realtor or a consumer, truthfully, that's opposed to that either. I think, you know,
no,
everybody's very glad to have made their money, you know, in all this, like homeowners especially. But I think, you know, a lot of people are craving a return to normalcy where you could just,
yeah.
and for young people, they've never seen it where you can go out shopping for a house, find the one you like, and make an offer on it. Like they've just
Yeah. And negotiate. Do you remember the last time you negotiated on an offer?
I know.
I don't, you know. So
No, exactly.
yeah, and it's funny. I don't know about you, but I'm, you know, there's times I feel like I'm 10 to 1 on offers I write versus offers I get. So I mean, you know, there's you know, I'll go on a tangent for a second here. Everybody's saying the realtors are rolling in it right now, but there's a lot of agents that are out there hustling super hard, writing offers and not coming out with anything at the end of the day. So you know, it's not always the case. There's a lot of hard work that goes into this stuff for sure. So yeah.
You know what? I think you and I are probably the same in this as well. But for me, I would rather, you know, my client lose a house because I didn't push them to offer the price I think would get it, versus them get it and then resent me or just overall regret the purchase because they really weren't comfortable with the number or they didn't think that that was the house to go to for that number.
No, absolutely. And you know, I mean, on a similar note, when you're talking about, you know, going in unconditional offers and that kind of stuff as well too, you know, I mean, you know, home inspections are not common thing up here right now because you've got so much competition. But you know, considering I consider myself a very ethical realtor, I'm always in the best interest of my clients, and you know, everybody's going to say that, but I legit mean it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, you know, this is what's been challenging for me in this market is you know, advising clients to tell them, okay, this is where you need to go for this house, but not pushing. And at the same time, you know, you probably have to go without conditions, but not, you know, not pushing, right? So
yeah,
that kind of stuff. So yeah,
I know
it's challenging. So
it is. It's a very delicate spot to be, especially. And I wouldn't have invited you on it as somebody that I would love anybody that I'm working with to go to Sudbury if I didn't believe that you were that way. But I think that is a big part of it is, you know, anybody can tell somebody what to offer, and the number of times that I've seen people say to me like, you got to tell me what the number is, or you know, I'm looking to you for the number. Again, I don't want to be the one that gives them a number that they're not comfortable with, or be the sort of incendiary for them going to the number that ultimately ends up, you know, driving them to ruin, or you know, I mean, it's long ways down the road, but
sure.
Ideally,
no,
I don't want to
get
be
the sentiment. I mean, we're dealing with major major purchases here, right? And you know, our goal as realtors is to give the best advice we can. But you know, there's limits to that too, right? Where you're sitting there saying, okay, like, you know, reason's got to check in too. It's not at all costs. You know, I mean, there's always another house, there's always another deal, there's always something else that you can find that client too, right? So it's about finding the right house, right price, all that stuff. So yeah,
it's a little bit anecdotal, but on the note about the home inspection. So last week we were talking with Nevin Holliday in St. John's, and he was saying that he had a property with 8 offers on it, and all 8 offers came in with home inspections.
Whew.
And they market wide, they don't play with that. Everybody gets a home inspection, they don't take it out. And for me, like, I would love in the business, knowing that it will cause problems, but to have some element of due diligence that we could bake into an agreement. You know, the same way when you buy a new condo, you have a 10-day rescission period, and it changes the listing strategies and things like that. But I really think that the business could adapt. But just anecdotally in your market, do you find that there are a lot of properties that you go into in a home inspection, or that you as a realtor, and we take some of the onus on, even though ultimately we're not supposed to and it's not our job, but you know, we do end up looking with a little bit of a finer tooth comb, especially when I walk into a property that I know is older or susceptible to more problems. You know, I'm going to say, you guys look around, decide if you like the space. I'm going to be here, you know, criticizing things or pointing out things that you might
looking
miss
for red
that
flags
are a little concerning to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely the case up here. I mean, and especially with older houses and you know, mining, blasting, those are all foundation stuff that happens, right? So I mean, like I said, I've lived here my whole life, 16 years, you know, in the business. I've seen a lot of houses. I've been on a lot of home inspections. I am not a home inspector by any stretch.
No,
but
for sure. But
there are definitely red flags, and you know, you got to try and point those things out as you see them. We do, you know, obviously provide some level of expertise, and that's what we're here to do. But you know, I mean, it would be incredible to see the industry adopt the same kind of style that they do over there. You know, where everybody's got a home inspection. But again, that's got to be industry wide, and it's just not happening, right?
No, for sure. And exactly.
We've gone down that road already, and it's not happening, right?
You and I both know the logistics of it too, right?
Yes.
Being on the backside of it, and what we can influence and what we certainly can't influence despite our best intentions. And yeah, I was just curious to know just about things like that. But again, I wouldn't have considered, and being out of market, wouldn't have considered, you know, the impact of the mining and blasting, but that's area expertise, that's local stuff. And again, seeing the same sort of things and knowing the areas and where things might be susceptible to things like that, because you've probably seen them more often.
Absolutely. You know what, and you know, if anybody wants to come and move up here, I'll show you houses with rocks in the basement. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But I mean, we've got a ton of houses that are built on bedrock, right? And like to the point where they didn't blast it, and they just kind of put the foundation around the block.
Close enough.
Cool. So yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I know Sudbury has. I saw somebody share something today. I was reading it today. They shared it a while ago about tax rates in Northern Ontario, and that the tax rate is higher. And I feel like you guys just get an atrocious rap for that, because it's to me it's nonsense, because the assessed values are lower, so your end.
So here's the deal with Sudbury, right? So we have geographically, if we're not the largest city in Ontario, we're close to it. Okay, so geographically, we have a ton of space up here. All those roads need to be maintained. We have bedrock, we have clay, we have blasting, we have all kinds of stuff. We have occasionally brutal winters, freeze thaws, you know, cycles, all that stuff. So, you know, our roads in general are a big cost, and you know, need to be drawn from the tax base. So that's probably a big part of our property taxes, is covering that stuff. But yeah, we're taxed fairly heavily up here compared to some of the other markets. I think it's just a product of number of people versus, you know, square hectares or acres or whatever you want to call it, area, right? So the population density is not huge up here, and ultimately that draws from the tax base. So
do you get resistance to it from people that are moving out of market? Like the biggest thing too, right, is you look at Toronto taxes, and not
dude, they're paying like half the price you guys are up there. They don't care about the taxes at that point. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You can't have it all. You know.
No, exactly.
You got to give somewhere.
don't get me wrong. I've had people, from, Barrie. I've dealt with people from, GTA, all that stuff have come up and like, holy crap, you guys, how come we're paying, 11 grand for taxes on this place or whatever it is, and it's, and that's, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some sticker shock there, but ultimately when you're talking about, $500,000, $700,000 purchase, I don't want to say it's nothing, but,
you can find it somewhere.
It's a little bit less nothing, Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you never want to diminish someone's objections, but at the same time, yeah, if you looked at it in 2020 and you didn't buy because the taxes were a little high, like, yeah, I could have made you a decade to get the property taxes.
I did a post on this a while ago. It's like the client that comes in and says, this house is perfect, except my bed doesn't fit in the bedroom. I'm like get a new bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like seriously, get a new bed. We're talking about $500,000 house and a $300 bed. Figure it out. So, no, seriously, fit your bed, guys. It's all good.
Yeah. I guess I don't have anything further to ask you. Do you have anything that you wanted to know about out here, just briefly, or anything that we didn't touch on here? That I know you said that you might have some questions for me, and I just want to make sure that we've both covered off everybody.
Yeah, no, it's good. The only thing I mean, we covered your average sale price, your days on market, that's kind of stuff. It's regular stats. Those are fun things to know. Yeah. I was kind of curious, and I not to get too deep and heavy on stuff here, but
no, we can.
I've had some realtor friends in Southern Ontario, especially with the conflict that's going on in Europe right now. Talk about that actually halting the market down there very quickly. Have you guys seen it change since that happened at all? Have you seen anything slow down?
Yeah, for sure we have, and I think that's it's a real unknown, right? And I think at this point in it, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what's causing it. I was in a discussion just on Twitter with a few people today and yesterday just about that, and someone said, there's a lot of buyer fatigue, and I'm like, yeah, like there's buyer fatigue, but I mean, there's no more buyer fatigue, and it's no more exhausting buying now than it was buying in 2021 or late 2020. Like it sucked then, it sucks now. It's gonna keep sucking unless something fundamentally changes on a macro level. But yeah, I mean, since I'd say maybe the last 3 weeks, like that property that I listed that hasn't been that active, that property would have sold no problem
3 times over.
To the point where we called the first loser on the comp and said, hey, like, do you want to buy it? And had his client not bought the night before, would have probably taken it. Yeah. But now, five days later, we hit the market after photos and everything, and it's pretty tame. Yeah. And like there's a comp right there, and it's a complex of like 55, 60 units. Yeah.
So you've got a really, really solid price.
There's nothing for me to say
for it. So, and that's what I'm getting at is, you're probably going to see, and you want, like, we're not seeing it up here, but I've talked to some Southern Ontario realtors, some GTA realtors, that kind of stuff. And they said that like, it was almost like a switch was flipped a little bit with that stuff. So
100%. Yeah. And like, it is anecdotal, right? It's hard to say, and it depends on what your market is and what you're doing. Like we took a bully offer on a property, which I hate doing. But just because of the shift, I was like, for 2 properties in a row, we got to offer day, and I'm like, I really don't know where we stand here. Whereas, in January, I would have had the utmost confidence that we would have seen numbers that I could tell you we were going to get 5, and I could tell you probably what the 5 were going to look like. And so twice we had to consider taking something, and one we declined, and then ended up selling it for less because nothing else materialized on the day. So yeah, I mean, like I don't like to make a habit of being wrong on stuff, but when the market changes quickly, like to an extent,
that's it, right? Yeah,
you kind of have to trust your gut, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, Chris, I see he wants me to comment on the short-term rental.
Yeah, perfect, guys.
Yeah, no worries. So, I mean, first of all, I mean, if you have more questions than what I can answer here, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to answer anything you need. But that is a market that you would not be alone in exploring right now, especially because we have so many lakes and so many recreational properties up here, that, the Airbnb idea or the short-term rental, the cottage life kind of thing is definitely a market that people are exploring up here. It's not taken off dramatically, so I still think there's plenty of opportunity for it. But I think it's something that you'd be smart to get on fairly soon, because I would imagine that, come the springtime, the snow melts, properties are going to start to go up, and we're going to see a lot of that stuff happening. So, yeah.
I think that's, part of it too is sentiment. I think Sudbury's still underrated in that capacity.
Sure.
That I think you have, like you say, when you're talking about Muskoka prices changing and that drawing the market a little further north, people that are, they thought they would drive 2 hours from Toronto, but maybe they're driving 4. I mean, that's a cottage or camp commute from here. So
that's right. So, I got you.
Yeah. So I'm learning. So, I mean, that's something that, it's on the weekends, it's not outside the realm of consideration. If you
no, and just for reference, I mean, straight from the GTA, because I've done the drive a bunch of times, like right to Sudbury is 4 hours. So I mean, south of the city, you're 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like to get to a reasonable cottage area, it's 3 hours as opposed to the 2 that you're going to drive from Muskoka. So you're adding an extra hour, but you're probably saving half the cash.
Right. Literally, and I think. Yeah, I think that's a way underrated element, and I think, like you say, people will start to catch on, but it has to develop that brand awareness that Muskoka has, and I think that sort of takes time, because the froth just kind of follows, where everybody else is telling them to go.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And frankly, you're going to have a lot less busy lakes. 1, because we have a lot more. 2, just the population density is not there. So, I mean, I know I've got friends in Muskoka that it's great, but you're on the water with 60 other people at the same time. It's not the same, right? So
no, you can't do all the same cool stuff.
No, for sure.
You can't open it up all the way.
You can. No.
There's just another question too about whether that market for second properties has climbed. Is that even locally? Is that something anyone considers, or are you just so close to the water that you don't really need to have a property on the water? You maybe know somebody, or you can just go out and use it.
Yeah, I mean, they're always popular here. I mean, I don't want to say we all, but generally a lot of people here do have camps or cottages, whatever you want to call them. Because the lakes are so plentiful. I mean, it's a lot of people aren't necessarily tied to them, but you have a family cottage that you can go to on the weekend or whatever the case is. Most of those, like I said, are probably either family or generational, but we do see enough of that market happen. And for those who aren't aware, we're about an hour and a half from Manitoulin Island, which is like the largest freshwater island in the world, I think, and absolutely gorgeous too. So we see a lot of people heading out to the island to do their camper cottage stuff, come back into the city, or an hour and a half drive, right? So yeah.
You got some appeal there too.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Lake Huron, right? So I mean, you're getting Georgian Bay basically. So yeah.
Right, and again at a discount.
At a discount, absolutely. So
I really thank you for taking the time, and I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people that reach out to you. I know I will be as well, just to get a little bit more insight on some of the questions. And I always get questions. I got questions after the last one as well about stuff that we didn't touch on. So I'll make sure that I pass those along. But again, for anybody, if you want to just give me the quick elevator pitch on Sudbury for why it's extra special to you, and then maybe just the quick Adam Sells Homes pitch too.
Yeah, for sure. So again, I can't say enough about my city. I've stayed here for a reason, and I've raised my kids. I've done all that other stuff here for a reason. 330 lakes, basically every amenity that you'd ever want for probably half the price of what you're paying in Southern Ontario. No offense, Tyson. But
no, listen, I like money in my pocket more than I like.
Like literally half the price. I mean, we've got great industry, we've got a great community, great culture up here, and life's good. Life's good up here. It really is. We were, I think, named one of the happiest cities in Canada a couple of years ago or something like that. So yeah, that's cool. Myself personally, again, 16 years in the business, do all kinds of creative stuff on Instagram. Make sure you check that out. You need to know more about me, please just hit me up with a DM. I am always available to talk. I'm a straight shooter and I get back to you right away. So please don't be shy. Follow me at Adam Sells Homes on all the major platforms. So.
Awesome, dude. I couldn't ask for anything more from that. I really appreciate you doing that. I hope a ton of people follow you, and I hope they reach out and we can do some business together. And
Awesome.
I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of each other. Are you going to Ottawa in a couple weeks?
I am. Yeah, I'll be in Toronto for RIA and Ottawa for CREA as well. So I'm sure we'll hook up then. So.
All right, sounds good,
Right
man.
on.
All right,
Okay,
let's have a beer. Okay, buddy. Thanks a lot. Okay,
No
appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. So that was a recap of the Sudbury market. Obviously, super enlightening. Lots more going on there than I think a lot of people give it credit for, and at a price that cannot be beat. I mean, half the price of Guelph. That is super, super appealing. Listen, thank you everybody for taking the time to tune in, ask the questions. If you have any other questions about Guelph or Sudbury, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Follow me at Agent Hinch. You obviously already are. But if you're on YouTube, please click the like button, and that really helps me out as well. Okay, guys. Thanks a lot. See you next week. Deuces.